Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns, and I know we just finished our episode on Stephen Street, and I had indicated that our next episode would be a sound off of praise for State District Judge Don Johnson. But when I said that, I was expecting that the event that I'm going to discuss with you today would be probably at least a week down the road, and it turns out that it happened a little faster than I thought. And that is the State Board of Cosmetology has now been sued by three individuals, two individuals and a company. And as many of you who follow the Sound Off Louisiana blog will know, this will just be one more in a long list of lawsuits that board is being hit with. And this particular lawsuit is being assisted by the Institute for Justice. You can go to their website at www.ij.org, and what they specialize in is the filing of lawsuits against governmental entities to defend the economic liberties and rights of people that have been disenfranchised in that regard. And I'll just say this, the lawsuit is brand new. It was filed in 19th JDC today, Tuesday, August the 2nd. Of 2016. I know many of my cosmetology board friends and the folks at those board meetings will wonder, well, where was he yesterday and why wasn't he here? Because I am so frequently videotaping their proceedings. And I will tell you that yes, it's this type matter that was preoccupying my time, although I did think it was going to be a few days later before this would actually get filed. But since it has been, let's go ahead and bring that to the forefront. I'm going to give you a link to read the entirety of the lawsuit, but let me get straight to the crux of it. We're talking about a kiosk that was being operated in a mall for threading eyebrows. Now, I'm not an expert in that area, but the plaintiffs who hail from India and who were taught this at a very young age, beginning at 14, and have now been collectively, as I read the suit, approximately 54 years between the two plaintiffs. That's how long they've been doing this. And nevertheless, the state board has said that, hey, you have to have an esthetician's license in order to do this. Prior to 2010, apparently you did not have to have an esthetician's license, but this board apparently went on a rampage in 2010 because not only did they enact that particular legislation, but they also enacted this absurd requirement that you have two instructors irrespective of how small your class is. And for those of you who have looked at previous videos and seen the Nelda Doral incident, the board becomes apparently very selective about who they do enforce that requirement on and who they do not. And that's going to make for an interesting situation. But at any rate, these two young ladies, between them, have approximately 54 years of experience of doing this eyebrow threading. And the ironic part is it is not even taught. In the petition that I'm going to give you the link for, it is not even taught, nor does anyone know how to do it. Okay, in the 750 hours that the board wants to mandate that you have to take in order to get an esthetician's license, and in their eyes, do this legally. Now, I will say this, they also did cite that, hey, you have to have running water, and this kiosk was in the middle of a mall, but the board had previously said as long as you use the hand sanitizers between each customer, there is no skin-to-skin contact, there are no blades, there are no instruments, you use a cotton string to do this procedure. It's described in the lawsuit, but basically that's what they're asserting. There is no risk to the public here, okay? And for all this time, they're using the hand sanitizer between customers suffice, and not reusing the cotton, using a different cotton string on each customer. As I understand it, the process takes about 10 minutes and it costs between $10 and $20, and their business has been quite robust. However, in early 2016, this board decided to take on the action of shutting this operation down, or at least placing the license under suspension with the understanding that you will not operate this type of a operation without licensed estheticians. Now, ironically, their customer base has complained bitterly about this because they had to let the two workers who know what they're doing go. because they don't have this license. And now they've been forced to retain people who do have the license that don't know what the hell they're doing, and customers are complaining. And that, in a nutshell, is the nature of the lawsuit. You're welcome to read the entirety of the lawsuit, but basically what is being challenged here by the Institute of Justice is the violation of Louisiana's Constitution regarding being able to earn a living in a way that is not overly bearing upon the police powers of Louisiana state government. And I'm going to read just a couple of remarks from page 22. The equal light protects similarly situated people from being treated differently. Excuse me, I wrote from the wrong page. Basically, they're saying that this is overly burdensome police powers that have no applicability to what these people do. And so therefore they have filed the litigation. Now, we're going to give you links to all of the features that we have done at Sound Off Louisiana entailing the Cosmetology Board. You have Joseph Gao's class action lawsuit involving the Vietnamese manicurist. You've got Nelda Doral now having sued the board over them arbitrarily coming in and shutting her school down. And let me tell you something. This thing has been dominated by school owners, okay? And there are opportunities to gain the ability to become a cosmetologist in public schools, all right? They have now been shuttered down to almost nothing, all right? And there's a reason for that. When you go to these schools, you're talking $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. People have no idea how much, I certainly didn't before I researched this kind of thing, the kind of tuition that they impose upon these people. And what it basically is slave labor, okay? Because you've got to put in 1,200 hours, all right? 1,200 hours before they are going to deem you to be proficient in your trade. Well, guess what? The school owners who sit on this board, you know, they get to employ these folks because, hey, you got to do this to get a license, and they're charging customers on whom these people are learning the trade. So, I mean, what a racket. Not only are you getting this huge tuition from these folks that are enrolled in your school because they've got to be, because you've mandated they have to do it to have a license, you're charging the customers who are coming in and being serviced by this, and there is such a dominance to want to protect the large school owners. And I'm telling you, look up the owners of these schools from the previous board and the current chairman of some of the largest schools in this state, all right? And they don't want the small schools getting competition, hence the little 2-instructor rule. That the old rule before 2010 was that, hey, if you had over 20 students, you're going to have a second instructor. They changed that to say, we don't care how, I don't care if you don't have but 3 students, you're going to have 2 instructors. Now, when during the court arguments on the Nelda Doral case in 19th JDC about 2 or 3 months ago, Ms. Morris, one of the board's attorney, wanted to conveniently say that, oh, well, that's really, you have to have someone else on call, okay? Well, all I can tell you is that's not what they were saying to Nelda Doral in the hearing, okay? I don't think anybody would argue with having to have a second instructor to be available on call. If the main instructor gets sick or has to go emergently pick up the kid or something, to have a backup so that the class goes on. But this business of saying that, well, you better have 2 instructors actively working, you know, when you have as few as 3 students is a bit absurd, and I think anybody would be very difficult to counter-argue that. So it's mighty funny to me how the definition of 2 instructors seem to change depending upon the audience that is being spoken to. If it's the fellow board members in there, it's that, hey, it says you got to have 2 instructors, period, on site. But when you're arguing before a judge, oh, Your Honor, well, that's mainly we require them to have a second instructor on call. So somebody better figure out what it is, because I think that definition is changing depending upon the audience that is being spoken to. Now, as I said, I did not anticipate coming to you this soon after our Stephen Street feature, you know, but this lawsuit, it's a welcoming present for the new board members for the Cosmetology Board, because they have all been sued in their individual capacity. Attorney General Jeff Landry will get an opportunity, probably this will be his first opportunity to weigh in on the economic liberties issues, because as the Attorney General, it's going to be up to him with regard to handling this particular litigation, since it is against a state agency. I can tell you that the prospects would have been incredibly bleak for any kind of a favorable outcome from all this. Back in the days of James D. Buddy Caldwell, all he would have done is, licked his chops of, hey, this is more income from wage shows to go in and defend against these things. But we'll see if Attorney General Jeff Landry takes a slightly different approach, because I think if you go to page 22, 23, in that range of this lawsuit, and I apologize, I should have had it set to the right page to read you, I think they make some pretty compelling arguments about overreach. And while I'm on the subject of overreach, let me just say this. Some people may wonder, well, why do you get so passionate about this sort of thing? And I'm about to tell you why. I have never brought up my father in any video I've ever done, but my father had a tremendous impact upon me during the 21 years of my life that he lived. My father passed away in 1984. He has since gone on to be with the Lord, but in that 21 years, he instilled in me championing the cause of the small guy. And I'm just going to say something. For a little over 25 years, my father worked diligently at Dow Chemical. He was an instrument technician. He didn't have a college degree, all right, but he learned the trade. And I'm saying that because that's the equivalent of what's going on with these Indian folk, okay? They learned their trade, and they learned it well, all right? And my father did extremely well as an instrument technician for Dow Chemical. Basically, as I understood the position, you largely have to monitor the pressure valves that these processes take place in these chemical plants. And if they're out of the range, the whole plant can blow up. And my father would often sometimes tell me how astounded he would be that, like I said, my father did not have an engineering degree. But he often would tell me how astounded he would be that a brand new LSU engineer would come in and, they don't just trust those folk to go setting the pressure on these gauges. It has to be signed off upon, and they would bring that pressure that they want to set the valve at, and my father would say, no, you're not going to set the valve at that pressure. And he said, if you do, you're going to blow the whole plant up. And they would counter-argue that, well, this is what the formula said. And my father would say the formula is only as good as the input you put into it. I don't know what you did wrong, but you did something wrong because you cannot set the valve at this pressure. You'll blow the whole plant up. And they would go back and review, and sure enough, they would come back and they would admit that my father was right. Now, my father passed away on October the 12th, 1984, but shortly thereafter, his colleagues and the folks that he worked with felt enough of him to provide this plaque. I'm putting it up so that you can see it. And I'm going to read to you because it reiterates what I just said. And it says, Mel Burns, we are going to miss you. We are going to miss your expertise, your troubleshooting, your turning of controllers, your vast knowledge, and your ability to send our best academic scurrying to find out why what you did works. We're also going to miss your personality, your tales of flying, your investment counseling, and your enthusiasm for life. You taught many people many things in your 25 plus years at Dow. It's an honor to have known you, and you will always be remembered. And what I'm going to make is the analogy. My father was very good at controlling these instrument valves, just as these people have 54 years of doing this. 54 years. All right? And I'm making the analogy that this would be somewhat akin to my father going over to India to do the job he's done at Dow for all these years, controlling instrument valves, and getting over to India and saying, no, you don't understand. We're not going to let you do that. You've got to go get a license. And part of that license, you're going to have to do the architectural plans of these facilities. And my dad was, what's that got to do with what I'm doing? Well, I don't know the first thing about architecture. You're telling me I've got to go in and take all these classes and learn this sort of thing so that I can do what I've been doing in the United States admirably for 26 years? That's what these folk are being led down the path of. Go and take all these classes, pay all of these fees, 750 hours to learn things that they readily admit is not even in the curriculum of how to do this. And my father, for the 21 years that I was alive, he championed the cause of the small guy. And that's what I envision myself as having done. It is very, 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 very difficult to go up against these state agencies. Trust me, I know I've done it. All right? It's extremely difficult. And it's an extreme rarity that the small guy, that the little guy, walks away victorious. And I don't know whether these Indian folk are going to or not. They've drawn Judge Caldwell. We'll see how it pans out. I certainly will be there. But if anybody asks, why are you so passionate about what you're doing? I'm carrying on the legacy of my father. Thank you so much. We look forward to bringing you that next episode about District Judge Don Johnson's ruling on the near future, but I didn't realize this was going to happen this quickly, so forgive me for stepping a little bit out of sync. Thank you once again. We look forward to bringing you the next feature.